Okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm going to defer on the
Okay.
approval of the minutes until we get one more person who can vote. Project updates, I'll give you an update on the Center for
Let me
the Arts.
let you go. Okay, I'm in a meeting. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Center for the Arts, if you've checked lately, you'll see that there's an increasing number of people who are on site. The little theater is being built now, so if you're off on the southeast corner of the second floor of the V building, you're looking right into the little theater now. You'll see the rebar sticking out, I don't know, 15 or 20 feet. That's not the full height of the little theater yet, but you can see the rest of the building finally. So at this point, you can actually see the shape of the entire building for the first time. We're still, I think that we've come to a conclusion with edge development in terms of everybody paying their bills quicker. The downside of the current economic situation is that nobody has cash on hand, which means that the general contractors don't have enough cash. It also means the subcontractors don't have cash, which means that all this is kind of running hand to mouth. And what we're trying to do is to speed up the payment to Edge so that they can speed up the payment to their subs. And in the meantime, they've also collateralized the receivable that they have from us in order to get a $9 million line of credit so that they can pay their bills quicker. So finally, we're seeing a pretty big uptick in activity over there. And hearing it too.
Yeah, and there is a
That's
lot
how I
more
can
out
tell.
there. I mean, they're very active.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot more crews out there.
So what will happen is that you're going to start to see the steel studs going up pretty quickly now. I think that tomorrow the rest of the third floor gets poured, and then what's left for the pour is the roof. But you can, obviously the building's shaping up rather nicely. Additional projects, the elevator project in the R building is probably 3 or 4 weeks out now. So if you recall, the old men's restroom has been converted to women's, and then we've doubled the size of that. Because any number of years ago, we put up another wall in R108 in order to encroach on that classroom so that we could create a restroom that was large enough to handle the numbers required by women. So I think it's a pretty dramatic change in there already, and what we're going to wait for in order to do the men's restroom is for the Center of the Arts, for the Visual Arts and Media Studies people to move into the Center for the Arts, because the Division Dean's office and the Assistant office will be taken over and added into the new men's room, which was the women's restroom. So this way the women get the restroom first. So hopefully first week or two of June that project will be complete. Elevator project, because the elevators keep breaking down, that's going to go out to bid again here pretty quickly. And that's going to be about a 2-year project when it's all said and done. And if we can start with the R building, that'd be great, because the R building elevators are on life support.
Since I represent CEC, we have quite an elevator problem ourselves. Is that included in this?
That's not, but what you'll find is that we have because we're trying to upgrade the old elevators. And that's like 40 and 50-year, 60-year-old elevators. So the R building ones are still original. E building, D building. And we were going to do the 2 and the U, but of course we're not going to do that anymore. But the price tag is also coming in very high, so it's going to be over $2 million. The problem with the other elevators is that elevator companies have merged, and the competition has largely disappeared. And in any service industry, when there's no competition, there's no service. And what we're finding is that fewer and fewer people are traveling further and further in order to service elevators. So you'll have a person who literally has a service area from Santa Barbara to Riverside. Now,
I was going to suggest that maybe the college might want to hire an actual elevator technician as part of our facility staff. We could save money as well as avoid having to wait for one of these technicians.
and I don't even remember how much the contract is for, you know?
believe it's in excess of $100,000.
Is it?
But the issue is often that they make that in overtime charges, and we don't ever seem to have anybody when we need them.
That's also true. So I know at CEC it's a problem, but it's a problem here too. Is that elevators break and it takes forever to get the technician out here. And we threatened to fire him, and we've actually fired companies. But the problem is, the next time, the company who we fired ends up purchasing the company who we end up hiring. And we end up in exactly the same situation. So that happened with Reliable Elevator and Schindler Elevator, and it's just,
And Schindler's one of the biggest people that there is.
they're gobbling up the little ones in order to create an office.
So our annual costs in elevator maintenance are in excess of $200,000?
Well, he said 100.
They
but-
very well can
Oh.
be. What happens is that we give them a standard flat rate,
Of 100,000?
but that doesn't include often the calls for services when we need them outside of their normal maintenance contract. And one of the things that we found when we do an audit
Right.
of the different elevators and when they're supposed to sign and for inspection purposes, we found that in as much as 50% of the time, they often don't even show up when they're supposed to. I don't know whether this, I would imagine this committee has the ability to move something forward to can we, it's not, okay. But hiring, I believe, through, as an additional facilities employee, an elevator repairman.
Certainly seems smart.
Okay, now that we have enough members here to vote, is there a motion to approve the minutes of, the minutes of
Prior minutes.
March the 14th?
Rick, I'd like to make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay. Coleman. Comments, additions? Hannah?
I guess I would just like to make the comment that if we could put the meeting dates of the subcommittees in the minutes, so when we upload them to the internet, they're able to be seen by other people from the community, because I know we don't have a lot of web content about the SMPF right now, so can that?
Not yet, but we will.
Okay.
And because the meetings are not necessarily scheduled this far in advance,
Mhm.
we wouldn't be able to put it on the minutes
Okay.
from the last month.
Okay.
We can tell you when they were held, but that, not at the time that the minutes were made.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other corrections?
I have a question. Who,
Andrea?
Andre, I don't see my name as the person who attended yet. I know I attended last time.
This was
No,
March the 14th.
you did not. You were in a meeting with Noah on Noah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I stand corrected.
So we can't make a motion to
Nice
approve them.
try.
No, in fact, that's true. Point of order, Hannah just mixed you. You can't approve minutes if you weren't there. So,
Hannah's an expert on the Brown Act.
So,
this is Robert's rules.
parliamentary procedure, I'll make a motion to approve the
Okay,
minutes.
and Coleman's still second. Okay, is there, you know what, I still
Wait a
can't
second.
do it.
Hold on a second. I have a question. Hannah, I fancy myself quite a novice on those rules. Where does it say that if I wasn't in last meeting that I cannot?
Well, because you have to abstain.
It won't say on the minutes, but if you weren't there, how can you check the accuracy of the minutes?
Oh, I see. I'd like to know, I'm just curious, I'd like to read that.
Okay, I can send you
Yeah.
some.
Okay, so we still can't
information.
take a vote because you're gonna have to abstain.
And he already, he bounced
We
anyway.
can,
I know.
The boss.
All right,
we can just approve them next time.
we will, yeah,
Well, can you not make a motion that,
no, we're stuck now.
Where were
We
you?
got a lot to go. Come on. Hey, we got a
Okay,
lot to do.
so, moving on, Master Plan Architects, AC Martin and PBWS.
We have a question to begin with. Does this committee continue to meet over the summer, or when would the last meeting be before the end of the summer?
Of course, the workers here will be here, the faculty,
Some of us will be here.
Coleman will be,
Students will be here,
students will be.
absolutely.
Okay, so,
And if you check your agenda, those dates
In the
are on the
summer?
bottom.
Yes.
okay,
You
we
can
will meet in the summer.
Okay, great. 'Cause
Great,
that's good, because we need some sort of continual feedback, and that will be very helpful to
Okay.
keep the schedule.
All right, so we will meet during the summer. Okay,
So we have a couple of things that we wanted to bring back to the meeting. We have the first thing, which I'm going to hand out, but it doesn't necessarily need discussion. Just these is kind of a roundup of, I guess I called it the highlights from the work group meetings that we've been holding over the past month or month and a half. We have one more left to do, which is landscape and hardscape on Friday, but all the other ones have been completed.
And seismic, don't we?
Seismic has
no,
been completed.
seismic, we met yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So, this is not meant to be an exhaustive, comprehensive list of everything that was discussed, because obviously that would be pages and pages. It's really looking at the highlights, and the point of this is that the master plan team is going to be moving ahead to develop a series of alternatives. Richard's going to talk a little bit about that today, but these are some of the things that were brought up at the meeting, some of the suggestions that were made, some of the ideas that people had, and so we were going to try to look at those as we move forward to develop alternatives, and those alternatives will eventually become the draft master plan. So if the committee wants, I can make the individual meeting minutes available online.
Yes.
Do that with you, so that you can see what notes were taken for each specific meeting. And then if you have, if there's things that we left out or things that you wanted to add, then you can get in touch and we will add those in. So that's that. And then, do you want to, should we distribute this program, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, let's go ahead and do that, and we can also distribute these.
Okay. This came in the form of a memo, but the content of this handout starts on the second page.
What we wanted to sort of, this is more information on it today than anything else, and I mean, I have certainly immediate feedback, but so it's, the idea is to kind of outline what we were going to be doing, so everybody can begin thinking about some of the things that we will need to discuss and eventually get some decisions about moving forward on the master plan. So, first thing is the diagrams you see here are the 7 buildings that are kind of in the mix for modernization or reprogramming during the course. And the one building's not up here is, of course, the U building, which I think that's already to some extent been programmed. But what you're seeing there with the colored legend on the bottom are the programs that are in those particular buildings. General classrooms are identified, faculty offices, and the program that they're associated with, and so forth and so on, through every building. And the purpose of this is so that we understand this is a snapshot of where we are today. There's going to be a big change when the Art Center is complete, and then a second change when the U building is complete. There'll be some reshuffling that goes on. And it will open up opportunities for rethinking what we might put into some of those buildings. Our building is particularly affected because there's a number of art programs that will move out once the Center for the Arts is complete. And I guess it's maybe in the second or third phase, mathematics could very well move out of our building. So maybe even leaving the building virtually vacant except for some generalized classrooms that would be available. And the reason that's important is because we need to think about then what the next memo starts to talk about. And if you look at flip over on the backside of the first page, it lists out what are 4 alternatives that have been in the discussions so far. Now, not all of them have been decided on yet, but these are the options that would be associated with each one of those, and I'll go through those in a minute. But they have to do with, once all this shifting has gone on, there's a number of vacancies that become available, and how we utilize those will then reflect on what we may need to build or something at the end of the day. So the idea is to kind of open the dialogue about these things and then move on. And The next page is a preliminary, and it's really for the purposes of opening the discussion, effort at sort of programming what would be in each of those components. What would be in an innovation center, and the point of it is, not that I'm correct in all of this, but it's a way of looking at it so that we can decide whether I'm wrong or right, or add or subtract, or go from there. The Campus Performing Arts Center I put down simply because there's been some discussions about whether or not we remodel Sexton or we actually build a new one. So we have to know what that means, and so we can then begin to look at whether or not a site we have identified might be adequate or not. And all that sort of thing. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't Sexton looked at as kind of a historical thing?
Could be, but it's not currently historic. But I think that, well, you want to talk about any of this now, or you want to go through it all
Yeah,
first?
well, let's talk about that when I go through the Sexton discussion, because what I thought I'd do is kind of go through, first of all.
Because I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. This, I think, I mean, this basically follows the information and data we've been getting from the campus on where things are located. We've transformed it into these diagrams so that, one, the idea is that we can see it collectively as a whole and talk about this as a whole, not necessarily individual buildings, because we need to get our arms around a way that we're going to approach the reorganization effort after all these kinds of shifts, and how that secondary effect program will work out. But tied along with that are these four things. Let me go through them real quickly. First of all, it's the Innovation Center, and there are basically four different ways. There might be others if you think of one, put it on the table, but there may be four ways to look at it. One would be to put it into the W building. My initial program says it's up somewhere between 19,000 20,000 square feet. That's assuming 8 faculty in residence any one semester. My thought was they would be rotating out. They work there for a semester or a year, and then they would rotate out. Someone else would come in and try to do some of their experimentation and so forth. So there's a per faculty program component, which is about 10,000 square feet, and then I'm sorry, is that right? No, it's 1,300, no, I'm sorry, assuming 8 faculty and residents, it's about 10,000 square feet. And then there's a series of common spaces. And if some of these programs get combined, obviously restrooms you wouldn't duplicate, or conference rooms you wouldn't duplicate. But, so it says it's about a 20,000 square foot program, so that could easily fit into the W building, a remodel of the W building, and still leave space left over for locker rooms and things that are associated with the pool. Or you could construct a new building. That's one option on that site. We also talked about if there was a new theater constructed, and one of the alternatives under the theater, then we might remodel the Sexton auditorium space for an innovation center. We're working on a couple diagrams for that, and we'll get back to you with those. But there's also an opportunity to think about remodeling portions of the R building for the innovation center. Or you could construct a new building in parking lot 5, perhaps in conjunction with a new theater, or a conference center, or a welcome center. So there's 4 options about where that might go on the campus, or where it might fit. Regarding the campus performing arts theater, there's 2 options for remaining in Sexton Auditorium, one of which is just simply remodeling the existing space as it exists right now. It's clean up, fix up, and perhaps creating a small lobby and so forth and so on, and reducing the seats. There are about 1,900 seats now, and I understand that probably 12 to 14 would be adequate. The other is the plan that we had come up with in the previous master plan, which would basically segment off the balcony area, create a large lecture hall up there, and then create a lobby, restrooms on the ground floor, reduce the ground floor seating to about 1,200, 1,300. That's sort of if it remains in that location. The second alternative is basically building a new performing arts theater down on lot 5A, near parking and so forth and so on. And then there are two options that sort of have come up in various places at the workshop, the charrette, and then in this the committee meeting, and that is a conference center and a welcome center. I've separated them out here, but logically they might be very well easily combined. They might even be combined with the innovation center and wherever they go. But there's a series of options with those and where they might go. So the idea is to sort of get these things out on the table, and if anybody's got some other alternatives, that we can put those out there, or you want to just scratch some of these from the get-go. I think the point is that it's, at the end of the day, we're going to make decisions about any one of these alternatives to move forward with, or take them off the table, and they'll be part of the master plan along with, and these are all in addition, obviously, to the modernization program and all the other things we've been talking about. So that's sort of where we're sort of going and what we're working on right at the moment. We're doing some diagrams of what the Innovation Center might look like from a conceptual plan point of view, both as a standalone or as a infill to section, if that's a choice. We're also doing a look at the R building, fitting the either the conference center or the welcome center or the Innovation Center there. We're looking at some other reconfigurations of the R building and talking to our structural engineers about that. So those things we'll be bringing back to the committee in the next week or two. And so that's just a kind of a heads up of where we're going and what we're doing and have been doing.
So let me, because we were talking in the seismic deal yesterday about Sexton and the various different issues that are in play with Sexton Auditorium. And obviously, we all know that there's some significant seismic problems with Sexton, but we also know there are huge ADA problems.
Yeah.
And you know, with the dressing rooms and so forth in the basement underneath the stage, and it just, in our conversations and in a number of conversations, if we were to look at the possibility of putting in a new building in lieu of Sexton Auditorium, that is a glassed-in building that has the same mass, but that would be an innovation center. Because part of the problem with Sexton, by the way, is it's turned backwards. You know, there's really no entrance to Sexton.
And it's, you can't tell where it is if you're a newcomer.
If you flipped it around and had the entrance off the alley with the V building, that would make more sense. But of course, then you can't get any trucks to the stage. So it's just a very difficult spot to have an auditorium. And it also strikes me as being extraordinarily expensive to try to rehab Sexton itself. Okay, so then at one point we did talk about parking lot 5A, but another option in looking at it yesterday was to take out the W building. And if you were to look at the footprint of Sexton and the footprint of the W building, the footprint of W is actually bigger. So then if you were to envision having a main entrance to the new auditorium sort of on the southwest corner with, you know, sort of opposite the lane of the O&P buildings, you can have a magnificent auditorium structure there. It could be smaller, 1,200-1,500 seats. You'd be able to access it with trucks through the alleyway that runs between the IT building and the current W building. And recognize that for the W building, we still have to create far better support of the aquatic center. So we still need to have the storage, we need to have the team rooms, we need to have the dressing rooms, faculty offices and so forth. Because the way that the aquatic center currently works is not adequate. So if we had the basement level of that building being the support for the aquatic center, the ground level could be an auditorium. And then what you could do is above that, you could do these conference rooms and breakout rooms and classrooms and so forth that would combine into sort of a meeting, conference, gathering space on the campus. So that for large groups you would have 1,200-1,500 seats, but then upstairs you'd have, you know, different breakout rooms. Now then you could actually, if you look at the drawing, because Greg and I were talking about this yesterday, is you could actually tie the R building in with that building. So if you see where the pool is in the middle there, and obviously the building to the left of that is the W building, and the building above it is the R building. You can actually tie that in together. And previously, we also talked about the R building space being available for a university center. The idea being that if we envision having PCC students being able to get their baccalaureate degrees with, not necessarily with PCC, but at PCC, so that if Cal State LA came and taught classes, they would teach classes in the university center. Or we could rent out classrooms to Woodbury University for weekends or whatever, to where we create an external component to PCC to where students can still come to the campus and get their junior and senior year courses for their bachelor's degrees. So, and by creating that nexus, I think that we can also create a space that is the conference area. It'd be a performance area. It would be, central area of the campus. So that's an option that we came up with yesterday that I think is kind of interesting.
Would that connection take place on the ground plane as well, or would that be would that allow?
Well, it could be both, because you could do a breezeway between the two, which I think would be really cool. But it could also be, the third, fourth, and fifth levels tied in together.
Yeah. I mean, one of the difficulties right off the top of my head is that the theater space itself is going to be a long span. So trying to put floors on top of that is extremely expensive. It doubles up the structure cost and so forth and so on, but nothing's impossible, but I'm just throwing that out there. But it could be that it's over the lobby area and the restrooms area, that's just going to be a limited portion of the site. We'll take a look at that. We can do diagrams and take a look at it.
And then the Innovation Center would be Saxon Auditorium.
Yeah,
But so
we've
that
done
you-
some diagrams with that, and it actually works out pretty well.
Well, if you imagine that you could enter from the ground level, you could enter from this level into that space, either one. And then you could walk in and you'd have this, this solar, bright area with glassed windows that we talked about.
The idea that you could actually take those sort of courtyard spaces that are used only for exiting right now,
Right.
plant those, and then you open up glazing out to those, it could be a really kind of great space.
I just wanted to look at the rough scale, but if we were to take Sexton, which is, I guess, this
Yeah.
footprint, and
Insert.
it almost inserts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
can insert that way.
And if you make Saxon smaller, because we
Yeah.
could reduce it by a
Right.
third.
Yeah, that's 1,900 seats, well, including the balcony. The ground floor, I
Then
think,
the
is about
northern half of the
16 or so, 1,500.
in the northern half of the W building to
Could
then
be
become
multi-story, yeah.
multi-story classroom, and then you could get what you're talking about.
Right.
We're starting to look at this, and I want to get a little bit of direction from you, Rick, on a concept I sort of laid out when we were in our discussion, forgotten which workshop group it was, when we were in the facilities conference room, that we've thought about a way to look at remodeling the R building that is pretty radical. And it has to do with basically putting a center corridor down the center, expanding the walls out to the exterior of the walkways, and creating an exoskeleton that basically provides the structural shear walls and support that you would need, but it would be kind of an open system with some steel bracing and that sort of thing. And then you glaze that, and you take out the shear walls and move the walls out so that you actually have natural light in all of the classroom spaces. It changes the whole character of that building. So the idea of it becoming the university center and renting spaces out become a whole lot more attractive than in the kind of spaces that you've got now. But it ratchets up, the kind of cost for the remodel significantly. Now, I'm getting some diagrams together so we can have at least an initial dialogue with our structural engineers on that. But anything is doable, but it just, you got to apply more money to it. And I wanted to, given some of the feedback that the board was laying out when you mentioned a $250 million potential bond, where is that going to come down with them, and how they're going to feel about that? And I think there's a lot of similar arguments with replacing Sexton. There's a a delta maybe of 45 million for a new auditorium space and all that versus 15 or 16 to be able to remodel. The problem with that is you still got all these other problems with it of accessibility and buried in the middle of the campus and basement dressing rooms and all the other issues that go on with that thing. So you get a remodeled auditorium, and you can solve those problems, but it's still in the same location and has some of the same inherent issues.
But here's what the issue is that if we're gonna be a community college that is global in reach and embraces the future and is actually visionary, I think that necessarily you have to, you've got to create spaces that actually work for the future, okay? Now, for a community college, I cannot imagine that in 20 years, the community college experience won't include a bachelor's degree. And I think that the service level that we provide to our community should have that as an option. And I think that for our students to simultaneously be able to take, you know, the freshman and sophomore level courses along with the junior and senior level college courses, I think is a huge service to the students, and I think that it puts us in forefront of where we need to be anyway. So I think that in order to be a top flight community college, you have to go down that path. And our mission is to be top flight in everything we do.
And let me just also add to that, you know, your question about the budget and the bond. Remember, the president did tell us, the president of the board told us that he said we should actually just put that the 250 amount aside and determine what it is. He said it could be more, it could be less.
Well, I'm just getting a reading from you guys as, you know, as we move forward that you know, we hopefully put together a plan that not only addresses the needs of the campus into the future, but actually that we can get the board to buy into it, we can actually move this thing forward with appropriate bond and all that
I
stuff.
think that it's the wrong move for us to think small
Okay.
and hope that the board thinks bigger.
Well,
I
I
think
just
that we
wanted that
need to-
confirmation, that's all.
And I just want to say, I completely concur with what Rick is saying, because I
I
think
would
that
too,
we
and I'm
do
glad to
need,
hear it, so.
yeah, because I think that the R building will increasingly become dysfunctional, and we'll be looking at it like the U building.
I think it's,
Well,
to me, it's a time to either look at getting rid of that building or really doing the right thing and getting it to be a modern building that functions properly going forward for another 40 years.
But it's
And-
hard to imagine scraping the R building out, because structurally it's okay. Now mechanically it's horrible because, and aesthetically it's beyond.
And from a functional point of view, the classrooms are awful. They're terrible environments for teaching.
Right.
And so if you can improve all of those things, then you got a building that'll last 50 years.
So if we took and I think within a sustainability environment, the point is that if you can rehab a building as opposed to scraping it and rebuilding,
Absolutely.
it's way better.
Absolutely, no question.
So the section, when you described it as the lobby and then on the north? Or-
no, the lobby would be on the southwest
South.
corner, and so we're talking about on the north side,
We're
those
talking
being
about the W
classrooms.
building, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so then the trucks have to come around
Through
have to
the,
make the turn.
between
Yeah.
the ITB building.
And then they
Right,
back into the
right,
dock area.
right.
So where were we saying the lobby was?
It's on the southwestern side.
Yeah,
There you
there.
go, right there.
So that you create a connection point from the parking structure.
Yeah.
Right.
But you do have that facilities driveway, which is kind of an eyesore right there.
Right here.
Yeah, well, we'd have to work that out too, I guess.
Well, you know, in a way, it would be an opportunity to kind of showcase the what do you call it,
The
Planetarium.
observatory.
observatory there, as you kind of pass by and go to the theater and so on and so on.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
what I would suggest is that we put forward a couple of diagrams for different locations. One down here, because I think that's a viable site, and then the other one for the W building here. And then we've already got a diagram showing how you can split up and reconfigure the section auditorium. And the one that's kind of leave it as it is, but upgraded, you know, it is what it is, it's just gonna kind of be a cleanup thing and put a lobby in. But, and then we've got another diagram that we're working on that shows how the innovation center would go in there. And that would be something that actually would work pretty well. You'd have an access off the south and off the north, and then be able to make use of these two courtyards here for landscaping and sort of, I'm not sure whether you want to necessarily go out, maybe you could even go out on them. I think there's some height problems that make it a little difficult, but even if it were just visual, it would make that space really, rather than being buried, have some character.
I do have a question.
That's it,
About,
yeah.
Rick, you mentioned the issues of the seismic and the accessibility problems with Sexton. And so would that say to us collectively, we should not even pose the idea of refurbishing?
I think
Or
you
should we
need to.
pose the refurbishment that takes into account the changing the accessibility, changing the seismic, upgrading seismically and so on?
But I just have a hard time imagining how to overcome the accessibility obstacles.
It's
They're
going to be
enormous.
tough, and the interventions are going to be expensive and intrusive, and
And what Al was talking about before is in terms of the historical nature of Sexton Auditorium, it's going to be massively changed to even keep it.
Yeah.
Because by the time that you fix the stage, and then you fix everything under the stage, and then you fix everything in the wings of the stage, and above the wings of the stage,
right.
yeah,
Well-
and then you've got the scene shop and by the time that you start listing the problems of just the stage area, it's
Right.
massive.
Right. And, I think the other thing too is that if you have a reuse for that space, that really makes good sense and is a really good end product, then it's less sort of difficult to get your arms around the idea of building a new theater and still being able to utilize that space for something valuable to the campus, like the Innovation Center.
And if you can, in that innovation center, have some homage to what Sexton was.
And that's why I think that if you
design.
keep the exact shape, with a domed roof and stuff,
Right,
and you
right,
keep
right.
the mass of
A little
Sexton,
bit of that lighting feature.
so that,
in there.
and it could be glass, so it comes down into a central atrium and
Well-
to where you haven't disrupted the actual geometry of the building and the masses of the building.
And volumetrically, it does make that, abstractly, it makes that connection.
Right, I mean, our
And so-
concept for the Innovation Center, the model that I've sort of programmed out there, where you have a series of modules that are for a single faculty person, that include an office and storage and a flexible classroom space, that they would surround some kind of a large space that is kind of a larger experimental area where you can change partitions, you can try out new furniture, all this kind of stuff, and they collectively surround that. You can conceptualize how that would fit into that kind of space pretty well, so that you get to use the volume in a way that really is pretty dramatic, and I think would kind of add to the kind of innovative character of the place and the kind of things that are going on.
The volume's not being.
The last thing that I just want to completely understand with the W building is if we wanted to, is there any way to remodel this building? I mean, so we should state that is the assessment, because then the notion then of taking it down to build whatever we do
Right.
there, then it becomes the most viable
And
option.
can you elaborate a little bit on that, Rick?
Yeah.
I know we've talked about it.
Did you want to say something?
Not yet.
Okay.
Because it was on your point about the universities coming
Okay,
here.
all right, so we'll come back to that. The R building as a building itself is okay. I mean, it's horribly ugly and it doesn't work.
Right.
Aside from those minor details. The W building, on the other hand, is, in terms of the volume of the space, is horrible. It is unbelievably inefficient. We do have a seismic problem with W102, which is the gym portion, because it tilts up. And then the way that the roof structure is attached is a problem. And we'd have to completely take the roof down and rebuild it in order to attach it properly. Because what can happen now is that the walls can bow out and the roof can come in. But when you see the men's and women's showers and lockers, and you see the back area, which is where IT has sort of a storage space, and you see the deck above, which is used for, I mean, it's just unbelievable. The corridors are a problem. The classrooms are awful. There is no part of that building that
Right.
is up to snuff. And the shape of the building doesn't allow for you to be able to just go in there and rehab it. Plus, you still have the problem that the pool needs to have something that you can roll all the trash, that's the pool covers, the lane lines, all that stuff is just stored on the deck because there's nowhere else to put it. That stuff needs a place to go. We also have everybody, you know, trundling through the W building in their wet bathing suits, dripping water all over creation to get to the two different dressing rooms. We don't have a proper team room. We don't have proper faculty offices to support any of it. So by the time you work it all out, there's no part of the W building. Oh, and I didn't mention the electrical or the mechanical either, because both of them are seriously obsolete.
And I
And there's one other
understand all
function too,
the- yeah.
which is the dance.
Yeah.
And dance needs to come over to the Center for the Arts.
Right.
Well, and the other thing, when you think about remodeling a building, basically, you go back to see what is the basic structure. And that, there's a certain percentage of cost that is just that basic structure. And when you take everything else that you're gonna have to do anyway to remodel it, you get back to that basic structure cost. When it's a tilt-up structure, that cost is relatively low, so there's less and less value in trying to retain the structure. Our building, it's a different story. You know, that structure has real, you know, it's kind of gutsy thing. It's a lot of concrete, steel, and so forth and so on. So when you strip it back to the basic, you've got a value there that you can then build on and make a case for that. With a tilt-up structure, it's not that much value in it. So, you know, if you did that cost-benefit analysis, you'd probably come close to just saying if you were to tear it down.
So that we can show people, the board, everybody that we want to, the way that we're talking right now, I think could be put into a matrix of sorts so that people could begin to understand our decision-making process, so that, because it's quite comprehensive what we're talking about. And we're making these evaluations, and if we can make those evaluations evident to other people, then our conclusions are better, I think, better served, or better supported. And I just wonder if that would be an easy thing, because we're talking verbally about this, and we should make it visible to people.
Greg, do we have a seismic report on W?
W is included in the site.
We can probably put together something that would kind of describe that, you know, the cost of replacement versus
Right.
reconstruction.
And just like some of the impediments, and so that people can understand it. So it's just as clear as what we showed the board regarding seismic upgrade and so forth, so it becomes an emphatic, dramatic, you know, people can see it.
And would that also include like the HVAC, the electrical
Yeah.
that
I think it
Rick was
should.
talking
Yeah, it
about,
has
all
to.
of the components
Yeah,
that would need
I
to
think
be
it needs to
changed?
show the systems
Yeah.
and, yeah.
You want to talk about the,
I think the conversation, due to the limited time, I think the conversation is better focused on this, and then maybe I can email you and tell you my thoughts on it.
all right, okay.
I guess I'll add this.
One quick question.
Sure.
The art building, is that a concrete plate and column structure, or is that a frame structure?
It's a steel structure wrapped in
Oh, okay.
concrete. I mean, the columns are steel I-beams, and, you know, it's, I think, poured-in-place slabs and beams in terms of.
On steel deck, sort of like.
I don't think it's steel deck, actually, but I haven't, actually, I need to get the structural drawings. I have other drawings, but they're PDFs, and when you blow them up,
Jack, do you know if that's steel deck?
What's that?
Our building?
Is it a concrete
What's the decking?
slab, or is it a steel deck?
It's
or
concrete.
Concrete.
It's got a concrete floor.
Just look.
But you know, like the T building was like a concrete
Right.
building. I mean,
I think it's just concrete, it's over, not over a fluted deck like we have for the Center for the Arts and almost all the other buildings. It's just flat concrete on steel.
that's what I think.
yeah, and so that is even more substantial
Sure.
as a building than it's not, and it's more, it's a commitment.
So, we're, you know, I mean, this is a master plan, but what we're gonna try to get a read from our structural engineer initially on this, and I'll let you know what that is, the findings are initially, and then we see whether we wanna go there. I mean, Ideally, what we want to do is get enough information together so we can go to our cost estimator and he can say, okay, that's going to be X dollars to do that kind of remodel to the building. And as long as we understand from our structural engineers that it's feasible, we're not going to get too far into the engineering at this point.
One more thing, because if it is concrete slab and if the columns are concrete too.
They're steel.
They are
high
steel.
beams with, a surround.
Because I'm wondering how the connections are made, because that's the key.
That's
here.
why I want to get structural drawings. I don't
Yeah,
have that
because-
Well,
information.
and the
Because
seismic,
if
the
we've
tier
got
two
a-
on the seismic said that it was a sound building.
Well, because the point I wanted to make is that if it's if it's like a braced, if the frame is connected properly, we've got some seismic value in the structure.
Yeah.
And that we didn't have, say, in the U building because of the bolted connections. But if it was a reinforced concrete building, then
Right.
it would be great, because then we'd have the
Well,
reinforcement.
one of the
be
things that
continuous.
this exoskeleton concept would do is that it has to come all the way to the ground.
Right.
So you're getting a secondary portion of support now. And then, so you're not trying to drag all of the support out and take away that center wall. All you want to do is punch holes in those exterior walls right now as much as possible. You can leave portions of it. As long as you could get half of the, say, a width of a classroom into a glazed situation, you solve that problem.
Right.
So I think, conceptually, we're not completely taking away some structural component and adding another. We're actually being a little more on the redundant side, but that's the way
That's
you.
what it sounds like,
Right.
because it doesn't sound like, on one level, it sounds like you're talking about a curtain wall system, but then we're talking about more substantially than a curtain wall.
Yeah, and it would drag all the way to the ground and
Yeah.
have its own foundations
And
and all that.
there are two other points that I want to make here before we break. One is the international student issue
Yeah,
that we need to somehow fold into this. And what that would conceivably entail would be to purchase, well, or maybe we don't buy it, because I surely don't want to be owning dormitories, but to where, on the north side of Colorado Boulevard and even up some of the side streets, that there would be the ability to create residences for students. Because ultimately, if we ended up with 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever number of beds for students, particularly the F1s or out of state, that brings a lot of revenue to us. And when I'm looking at like I think, what is it these days, Hampton Court over there? Changes every now and again. The motel across the street. And then I'm sure that the Saga is also historic for some reason. But then it's probably just the facade, and it's surely not that back area. But, the Pasadena Ford here, the Davis Lumber property, somehow or other we have to come up with a way of helping to support international students.
We've had contact with a number of, they're basically firms that build and operate on some kind of an arrangement with the campus student housing. And they do it all around the country, depending on the size of the company and all that sort of thing. And it might be good to have some, get a hold of one of them or two of them, have them come in and have a presentation conversation about it. Because, what you want to try to do is offload some of that to them. If they have an agreement with you that you will funnel, this is like guaranteed,
We'll guarantee
fill up for them, they will then acquire the land, go through the process of building, getting the permits, and operate at a certain fixed rate for you, and provide you with X number of units. And, that each one of them has a different kind of conceptual approach to it, but that's generally the way it's done. And, they do it, name a CSU campus, and they're there, and they're even on some.
Well, like what USC did inside Shrine Auditorium.
Yeah.
Right, that is one of them, and building was originally developed by a developer, but then they brought in a group that does this kind of thing to run it.
Right.
Right.
Al, you want to say?
Yeah, the notion of dorms at community colleges is nothing new. There are, I think, 9 or 10 of them that right now that have dorms throughout the state. And I don't even know if they're for.
I just hate running dorms because there are such inherent problems in doing that. But to have another, which is what SC did, right?
Well, and some of those, they do, yeah, they operate most of their stuff internally, but, and the 5,000 units that they're building as a part of the new master plan we did will be owned and operated by the campus. However, it will be developed by one of these private sector developers, and then they'll turnkey it back to the campus for their own operations. But, you know, it's your choice about how you do those kind of things, and it's the thing that makes it work is that the campus provides the guarantee. It's basically like you got a 100% leased building, then you go out and try to get a loan on. Anybody in the world will loan for it, Lord.
Right. That's the whole point.
That's exactly
And the
right.
second point that I want to make is the east side of Bonnie Avenue.
Yeah.
Is that the district owns a bunch of property over there, and somehow or other, we always kind of like forget about that space. But if there are uses over there, whether, and it could be any number of different things, to where it still fits within the residential feel of the community, but like an alumni house or the foundation office, or, you know, support functions, or veterans affairs, or I don't know what, but some way or another, I think that we need to capture.
Can we get a map that shows?
And I think it's on the campus drawing that shows PCC with the
Oh, yeah?
address.
I didn't notice it, but.
And I don't know if Jamie gave that to you. No, it won't be on that one. It's on the big one.
all right, I'll
Like
take
in the
a look.
facilities office, you'll see that
All right.
in the conference room. So we have those, and it shows all the property over
I
there.
don't think we have that, but.
I think we
okay.
own about half the block.
Okay. Well, I know from Caltech experience and working with them that they're, the way in which the city has restricted those things is pretty tight. You know, they've got the president's house, lives there, and they've got alumni house, and they've got foundation, all those kind of things, but they're basically small operations that, you know, sort of fit in with the residential.
Caltech is private and we're not,
Yeah, but you're gonna be restricted though, aren't you?
for zoning.
From a zoning perspective, yeah.
Okay, but if it's zone PS, then as long as we contain ourselves within the restrictions of public, semi-public. Now, I'm not gonna say
I'm
it's.
just saying that I think it's zoned housing, it's zoned residential, isn't it?
Okay, and my point is, I think that because Caltech is in a slightly different position than we are, that it might be possible for us to entertain other ideas.
Okay.
But I would like to at least incorporate east side of Bonnie into the overall master plan,
Okay.
as long as we own it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
It's 3 o'clock. That
It
was a
is
whole
3
lot of
o'clock.
stuff.
That was a whole bunch of stuff
Yeah.
in 1 hour.
I talk fast. Dang, I'm just.
It was really good.
Okay, so the next meeting is when? June the 13th? Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.